Pastor Bryan Nerren was detained for 7.5 months in India and charged with crimes that he didn't commit. He's here to tell us his miraculous journey of how he got home to his family in the United States. You are watching Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter, and I just can't tell you how happy I am to bring you this story today. For 7.5 months, Pastor Bryan Nerren was detained in India, and we brought you updates and asked you to pray and write letters to President Trump to help him get home. And so he's here today on the Bridges set to tell us all about it. Welcome home, Pastor Bryan.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
It has to be wonderful. So tell me, let's start with the beginning of your journey. You were actually headed to Nepal for a missions trip, correct?
Yeah, for the last 18 years, I traveled to Nepal twice a year. We do a project there where we teach teachers to teach children. I was on the way there through India. We were going to stop in Northeast India to visit a friend who was having a celebration, and then across the border to do the work we always do in Nepal.
And what went wrong in India? What happened there?
We went through the proper procedures, and it's a disclaimer I need to put in the front of everything. I never broke any rules. I never broke any laws. I never did anything illegal. And even the judge, after 7.5 months, says, we're sorry for the problems and the inconveniences. You're free to come back to India next year with no strings attached, no problem.
Inconveniences?
That's what they call 7.5 months of my life.
Inconveniences, 7.5 months being detained. I mean, so it's not like 7.5 months vacation.
Not at all. The first 3 months, which was like through a civil court adjudication, they call it, they worked very hard. And the guy that was doing the prosecuting and putting this stuff together told me, we've been ordered by the central government of India to put you in prison for 3 to 5 years on a conversion charge. And I said, but I've never converted anybody, never baptized anybody in India. I've never done anything with that. And he says, doesn't matter about the facts. We have been ordered by the central government to make an example of you, and we're going to.
So conversion charge meant converting somebody to Christianity.
Yeah, there are certain places in India, not all places, but certain places in India where you're legally not allowed to convert anybody from Hinduism. It's supposed to work for everybody, but it's just about Hinduism. So you can't convert, a Muslim or a Hindu to Christianity or vice versa.
All right. So basically, they see you as a Christian pastor, and you pastor a church here in Shelbyville.
Yes.
So they see you as a Christian pastor, you're traveling, so perhaps it's like an opportunity for them to capitalize on that and...
Yeah, that's how it worked. When we were in Delhi, we declared the money we had. I did 4 interviews, 1 with a security officer, 2 investigators from the tax department, and the final say-so was up to the customs guy. I went through the process with all 4 of them, the 3 of us, there was 3 Americans together. All they asked was, are you a Christian?
Okay.
More details, but are you a Christian?
Yes.
Will you be seeing Christians in India? Yes, yes. And will any of this money be given to Christians while you're in India? And the question was maybe, because we didn't have any specific, plan or project there in India. We were going to Nepal. But if there had been something that would help children we could have done, we had extra money to do that with. And the answer was yes to all 4. None of those guys in Delhi asked questions about, do you have the proper documents, or here are the proper documents, or you need to fill out these documents. There was nothing about that. They listened, we had the conversation, shook my hand. The customs guy shook my hand, said, you're free to go to Bagdogra. What I do know now, after all the time, is it's not illegal to convert people to Christianity in Delhi, in the capital city, but it is in West Bengal where they allowed me to fly.
Okay.
So that was the setup. The original setup was let me go ahead and go to Bagdogra. There may have been 2 things. There was $40,000 involved. I think there was a couple of the guys that was planning on taking a large piece of that. Because India's government and the political part of the government and the police system of India is notorious for being criminals,
right,
dishonest.
Yeah.
And so no matter what happens, and through my story, there's a lot of money that exchanged hands for them. So that was probably in that first process. But as soon as I get to Bagdogra, I'm taken into custody, 8 hours of interrogation. They told me, you were going to send you to jail. They were going to send all three of us. And we made a deal where they would just take me to jail overnight. I would see a judge the next day. He said, you'll pay the fee for the amount of money we had. There was
the $40,000.
Yeah, the $40,000. We were allowed $10,000 apiece. So I had $10,000 too much.
$10,000 too much. Okay.
The $10,000 is to be tariffed. I can carry legally $1 million of American money to India anytime. There are no laws against taking money to India of any volume. You just declare it when you get there. Anything above $10,000, you have to pay a 2% tax on.
Okay.
And he told me, he says, tomorrow you'll go to the judge, you'll pay him the $200, they'll give you the $40,000 back, and you'll be free to go on and finish the rest of your trip.
But that's not what happened at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. So, but I do want to ask you, why were you taking $40,000? What was that about?
To do the projects that we need to do in Nepal.
It was for Christian work, right?
Oh, completely.
Money that you
Christian.
raised for ministry as a Christian
Yes.
pastor that you were taking over there. It's not like you're an excessively wealthy person. That would be nothing wrong if you were, but you were going to help people.
Yeah, 100% of the money was money raised. And the only thing we do is help children in poverty escape poverty. We're not crusaders, and I love that idea, but
Yes,
our
absolutely.
ministry, what we do is we help all children, doesn't matter their religious background, to get an education and to get a connection with the church
Yes.
and with people who give them the right. If you're Hindu and you're born poor, the Hindu belief is you have to stay poor.
Exactly.
The government official in India told me, he said, you Americans don't understand. We don't want your help with poor kids. If the kids die and starve to death, we don't care. Stay out of India and quit helping Indian people. The caste system is what we believe in.
Exactly. So Christianity is juxtaposed to all of that.
Yes.
And so here you are just working as a Christian person and as a Christian pastor to bring help to children that are in poverty. And somehow, some way, because you're honest that
Yeah.
you've got the money, people see an opportunity to get that money.
They wanted the money
Yeah.
for the government, but they also wanted to make a point. And that was one of the things that they pointed out in the very beginning, is we're going to send a message to your government. We're going to send a message to American Christians and missionaries, stay out of India. But I want to say something here that I don't want to be misunderstood. As far as I know, there's 6 people in India that hate me, and the other 1 billion plus like me. India is full of really great people.
Of course.
There are great Hindu people, there are great Muslim people, there are
That's
great
right.
Christian people. I did not know a lot of them. I know a lot of them now
Yes.
because they invited me to stay such a long time in their country.
And you wouldn't have gone for 17 years to do this work there if you didn't care about people.
Exactly right. We go because we love children.
Right.
We went with a dream. We went with a vision years ago. But we realized that what God led us to do there worked. As we watched the poorest of poor children in the lowest caste get a public education, we've helped some other groups that we've got to help them go to college, and they become nurses, doctors, prominent people in their culture, in their society, because we gave them a chance. That's all they ever needed.
Right.
God had already given them the talents and abilities.
Sure.
They just needed a break, and their government, because it's Hindu-driven, just refuses to allow
Right.
poor people to have a chance.
Yeah, because of the caste system, which you called
Yes.
it, and rightfully so, kind of whatever lot that you're born into, that's what they believe that you stay into. You don't get
Exactly.
to, like in America, if you're born into poverty, you can get an education, get a job. You can even be a great entrepreneur without an education, and you can improve your lot in life.
Yes.
But in India, that is not the thought process.
Yeah,
That is
India or
not what
Nepal.
happens.
India and Nepal are both Hindu-driven governments. And there's just small factions of the government that feel that way. Unfortunately, they're in charge of the...
Right. And they were the people that were interrogating you and
Yeah.
and did that. So I want to talk about for just a moment you and your family. I remember when your wife Rhonda called me when you had been arrested and jailed. And of course she was crying, and of course she and I prayed. And my thought process, Pastor Bryan, was we're going to get this all worked out. Like that you're going to be able to come home and it's not going to be that long. Like never in a million years did I think that you would be detained for 7.5 months away from your wife,
Right.
from your daughter Laura with special needs, and your son Kevin in your church in Shelbyville. What was that like for you?
It was an unending nightmare
Yeah.
because of the pain and the suffering that I put on my family and my wife. The place that I was staying had good internet, so I was able to talk with her every morning and every night. And the pain was so vivid, so real. Some days it was impossible. But from the very beginning, the guy who arrested me, he said, "This is not a big deal. We'll take care of it tomorrow and you can go home." The lawyer tells me 2 weeks later, "This is not a big deal. We're talking about a $200 tariff."
Right, $200 in taxes, right?
That's it. That's all there is. But there was that other thing from the ruling government, the BJP is the political party, where they wanted to make it more. And they drove that narrative all the way through. On December the 31st, they gave me my adjudication papers. After 3 months, they were not able to prove any conversion case. They went to people who I knew, people I had talked to on Facebook. They tapped my phones, they hacked my emails, they went inside, and they went to people's houses in Northeast India that I'd Facebooked. Literally went to their house, went in, stormed in their house, and put pressure on them to try to get them to say, "I saw him baptize somebody. So there was always that fear that they would eventually just pay somebody.
Exactly, or that somebody, just because they're scared that somebody's in their house. I
Yeah.
mean, because we're people, we go through
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And if you've got, you know, whatever you want to call it, the government or police or whatever, and they're in your house and they're interrogating you, there are some people that would just tell them whatever they want to hear to get it over.
In India, it's more realistic than anything we can understand. Because I have friends now that where police would come into their house, come into their church during worship, and take the pastor and his wife outside of the church, tie them to a tree, and beat them with a rubber pipe, beat them with a plastic pipe, and tell them no more church, no more prayer. If 2 or 3 people get together and pray in their house, and one of these radicals decide,
Yeah.
they go in. 4 people in that part of India has been murdered for being Christian in the last month.
So the threat is so real and so much different than what
Yeah,
we
it's
know.
very genuine, very real.
Yeah, we've got to take a break. We want you to stay with us here today on Bridges. When we come back, we're going to continue to hear Pastor Bryan's miraculous story of his return home.
If you're looking for ways to grow your faith, we invite you to go to monicaschmelter.com, where you can watch Bridges interviews and Monica's teachings on demand. You'll also find free online extras that offer practical ways to live out your faith. Visit monicaschmelter.com, where you'll find hope, because truth changes everything.
So Pastor Bryan Nerren is here on the Bridges set with me today, and we are talking about how he was detained in India for 7.5 months, and before he was allowed to return home to the United States, to his family in Shelbyville, Tennessee. And Pastor Bryan, this story is one of about really religious persecution, a huge trial in your life, and really people wanting all kinds of money from you.
Yes, it was. And the difficult things that happened were very personal, very painful. And while I was going through it, it was mostly about us. I mean, it was, Rhonda asked the question, you were helping them. You wanted to help their people. You're just doing the right things.
Right.
Why are they persecuting you? Why do they want to send you to prison? And the answer is it's a spiritual warfare that's going on. And now I know the story's not about me at all. I'm having this opportunity that I'm thankful today to be able to share this story with you, because there's tragic things happening in India today that were not happening 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you could go to India, you could hold a crusade, you could do anything you wanted to because Christians under their constitution are allowed to practice openly. But that's over with, it's gone. There's a mass persecution. They are killing and murdering Christians because they're Christian. And they will stop at nothing. They're ruthless to do what they set out to do. And they're publicly telling everyone, in the next 5 years, India will be a Hindu-only nation.
Wow.
They have passed laws this past year where Muslims will be kicked out of the country. I spent a lot of time in court. I was in court every week or 2 weeks, and I watched case after case of older Muslim people who had lived in their small, nearly nothing home for generations have their homes taken away from them by Hindu business people. And the new law, citizenship law, says unless you can prove you're a citizen of India, which most Muslim people can't because before the Muslims took over India, it was a Muslim nation. And they're going to kick them out of the country. And they told them, you've got 3 choices. You can convert to Hinduism. This is for everybody in India. You can convert to Hinduism, you can leave India, or you will be eliminated.
Oh, so it's religious persecution of any religion that's not Hinduism.
Yeah, if you're not radical Hindu, you're not. The lower caste, the Dalits of India, are also being killed. They're being starved to death because they're lower caste. They don't matter, even though they're Hindu.
Yeah, so they don't care if
This
they
government doesn't care about them. And they've really showed that during this COVID thing.
Yeah. And what you see is that now that this is about bringing awareness to what's going on.
Yeah.
And helping us to understand, because I think even when I look back to all the prayers and the letters that we wrote to the president, all the work on our behalf to bring you home, you would go to court week after week.
Yeah.
And your case would just be rescheduled, or they wouldn't have time to hear it. It's not like here, right? Where you could get a court date and you know that you should be able to talk to the judge, but that didn't even happen for you.
I've never spoken to a judge in 7.5 months. In the times that I'd go to court, they would stick me in a cage. My lawyer was—
What do you mean a cage?
A literal cage in the back of the room, like you see in some foreign countries. They had a cage. They stick you in the cage while the judge and lawyers are talking on your behalf.
So you were in a cage?
Yeah, during the court time. 5 times we had agreements with lawyers and do this, and we will give you your passport. You'll be free to go home. 5 times we went to court. Went to court lots of times, but 5 particular times where we had met all the requirements. And all 5 times they said all requirements met. And I've got copies of the documents. All requirements met. No release of passport. Cannot go.
So even though you jumped through every hoop that they put out for you, they still didn't keep their part of the bargain.
Never did.
And when we talk about legal help, you had some of the best.
We did. From the very beginning. I should have stayed. They took me to prison right after court. Instead of releasing me and paying $200, I went to prison for 6 days. C.C. Howell with the American Center for Law and Justice pulled all the strings and did whatever was done. They did that to get me out on bail. And I probably talked to C.C. every single day for 7.5 months. They were incredible to work with. But there's a limit, and most people have no idea about this, but American citizenship only works while you're in America.
Right.
We have an agreement with all other countries, especially India, that if a person is arrested in India, the American government will do nothing to help. And they came to me 8 days after I was there, after I got out of prison. A guy from the consulate came and he said, you just need to know because of our agreement, we cannot aid you, we can't assist you, we cannot help you in any shape, form, or fashion. And for 3.5 months, they didn't. After I was adjudicated December the 31st, I paid my fine on January the 2nd. They still didn't let me go. And then 10 days later, they began the process of filing criminal charges against me for being a smuggler. They had given up on the religious part. They couldn't make it work. So they decided to switch it to a criminal thing, which never had any ability to win. My lawyer said, they're never going to win this, but they have the power of deferral.
Right. They have the power to make your life very difficult,
Yeah.
to make your family's life very difficult, to make you lose all kinds of money, and they did that.
They did. And I asked the lawyer and I asked the people from the embassy, I said, this is, from here on out, this is not really about jail anymore. They kicked it up from 5 years to 7 years prison term because of the charge. But I said, this is just about money from here on out, and it's just blackmail. And I said, but I was so happy to hear them say that out loud. I said, this is just simple blackmail, right? Extortion. Yes, but it's India. Your choices are simple. You can pay what they ask, or you can stay here forever, because they will not break the law. They can't charge you with what they said they're going to charge you with and make it work. But they know you're an American. They know people in America have money, and they're going to work this
And they
until
know
they get
you
the
want to
amount
go
they want.
home.
And when we've paid, we agreed to the payment. It took 5 weeks after the agreement before they still let us go.
So 5 weeks after you gave them all the money that they wanted,
Yes.
all the blackmail money that they
Yeah.
extracted from you,
And it
still
was
5 more weeks to
It
come
was in
home.
multiple levels. Twice, a couple, maybe. You said we wrote letters to the president.
Yes.
I want everybody to know that our government, after January, I was tricked, got involved, and they became very active. And the consulate general from the embassy in Delhi, a guy named Morgan Parker. If I had another son, I would name him Morgan just in favor of this guy. He was incredible. He did a wonderful job, and Ambassador Jesters did an incredible job. February, when President Trump went to India, President Trump and the team worked out an agreement with the Indian government to release me. But Indian government, wanting to embarrass President Trump, withdrew from the agreement as soon as President Trump left India. They wanted to intentionally embarrass him. So he did everything he could, and he
Right.
never stopped doing,
Right.
They worked out a deal
Right.
to get me home.
Yeah. Really, what we're talking about today is a whole lot of spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
a whole lot of wickedness. It was not lack of prayer. It was not lack of President Trump working. It was not any of that. We're talking about really evil.
That's what it amounts to.
We're talking about evil. We're talking about greed. We're talking about wanting to make a statement to Christians like, we don't want you over here.
Yes.
We don't want the work of Jesus Christ going on. We don't even want poor kids to be helped. We don't even care about that. We just basically, we don't want your kind here. And so the toll that had to take on you, Pastor Bryan, and on Rhonda, and on your church family, what was that like for you?
It was very difficult. It was unimaginably difficult for my family in the church. They suffered, even though our church really did better without me. Attendance grew. They became more spiritual because
Well, persecution grew the early church. When we get persecuted, we just really dig in, right?
I mean, you did it here. You did it with everybody you know. There was thousands and thousands of people around the world that were praying for me every day who would not have prayed that much had I not been there.
That's correct.
It was a kingdom blessing.
That's correct.
It didn't feel like a blessing
Nope.
when I was there. It was tough and it was difficult.
Well, the Bible says it's an honor to be persecuted. It says that we should rejoice. It doesn't feel like it at the time, though. I'm about sure being detained over there and not being able to see your wife, my good friend Rhonda, and Laura, and your son Kevin, that doesn't feel like an honor.
There was a couple of days. I had a couple of dark days when I was, about to give up hope. I'm going to prison. There's nothing you can do about it. After the first of the year, that went away because I realized for certain what was really going on.
I see.
And it changed. But I made an idea. I had this idea. It's Philippians chapter 3 and verse 10. And I love the first part of the sentence. I was on a quest or journey, adventure, wondering what Paul would be like and studying Paul. And I wanted then, 30 years ago, wanted to be a serious Christian, not just a church attender. Yeah. And but 3 and 10 says to know Christ, to be like Christ, to experience the Messiah. And then there's a comma. The next part says the power of his resurrection.
Yeah.
I quit reading. 30 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I didn't, and then maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I began to experience the next part that I didn't like.
Right.
And the fellowship of his. So it says, I want to know Christ, power of his resurrection, and the fellowship of his suffering. Still, I quit reading. There's one more comma. And it talks about experiencing the death or understanding the death.
That's right.
And I began to read it as understanding the death, not experiencing the death. But there was times that I thought I would die in India.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
And that's, that's a hard thing to overcome. I've never been out of control of my life. Even when I was a heathen kid, I wouldn't drink or take drugs because I liked control. India, I had absolutely no control.
Yeah,
of any
it was
kind.
all taken from you.
Everybody owned me.
We've got just 1 minute left, but I thought it would be great if we could close on how you were able to forgive the man that arrested you, that put all of this in motion, really.
My whole life was intertwined with this one man, K.T. Boutier, who was the superintendent of customs at Bagdogra Airport. He arrested me, took me to prison, tricked me, connived me. He gets 20% of all money that was taken from me because customs officers are given a bonus for anything they can take, steal, seize from people. And so this was financially great for him. But that last day, he had to come into the court and bring me my passport before I drove 30-something hours to the Delhi airport to try to fly home. He said, I said, Mr. Boutier, I said, I did this because it's in the Bible. I did it because it's Christian.
Right.
There was not an ounce of it in me or in my heart or desire, but I made my mouth say,
Amen.
Mr. Boutier, I forgive you for everything you've done to me and everything you've done to my family over the last 7.5 months. He was confused about it all. He said, do you mind if we take a picture together? And I had prayed for him for months and months and months. I said, Lord, if nothing else happens, let me win my lawyers, let me win my prosecutors, let me do something that will cause them to see you, because I'm only here because of you.
Right.
And so we took a picture together. And at the very end, and I started home the next day.
Praise God that you started home. We're out of time, but thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the prayers, especially to all of the people out there that prayed for us over those 7.5 months. Every single prayer answered.
That's right. All answered. Here you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Bridges.
Don't miss another episode of Bridges. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today, where you can find all of Monica's latest teachings and interviews. It's easy to do. Just visit youtube.com, search Monica Schmelter, and click subscribe. Once you are subscribed, click the bell icon to get notified when a new episode is available to view. Thanks for watching Bridges.
For more information on today's guest, visit the website on your screen.